Scotland's population is ageing, and 1 in 3 members of the Scottish workforce is now aged 50 or older. And our research is really looking at the opportunities and challenges associated with managing an older workforce.
So across, Scotland, Europe, the world, basically people are living longer lives, healthier lives, and that's got implications for governments to look forward to, what services that we need to provide for in the future.
Without a doubt, the workforce is ageing in Scotland. It's ageing across the UK, but it's ageing particularly in Scotland.
Age only became a protected characteristic in the last 10 years, and many organisations focus on race, sexual orientation and gender. And in many organisations, age is the poor relation in the diversity and inclusion agenda.
From an industry sense, I don't think there was much emphasis on the age element as a protected characteristic, to be honest. But now, because of the demographic change, we need to address it.
Age discrimination is first of all invisible. Secondly, age discrimination is seen as less important than other forms of discrimination, but ultimately it's the one type of discrimination that will affect us all. The primary impact of the research has been threefold. Firstly, influencing Scottish Government policy to put age into the Fair Work policy agenda. Second, influencing employers directly in order to put the lens onto age-inclusive practices and policies. And thirdly, putting age on the employment agenda more generally. And the secondary impact has been on the workers themselves, the older workers themselves, meaning that they have a different experience in terms of their employers' attitudes towards them and the practices that they experience.
Well, when it became clear that, there was an ageing population and obviously there was impact, and that's where Laura and Wendy Loretto came in. So we commissioned the University of Edinburgh Business School to actually look at the lived experience of workers over 50 and how Scottish Government can support them to have a meaningful work experience and actually, help to grow the economy.
Well, building upon a research history of 20 years investigating older worker employment, we were commissioned by the Scottish Government to carry out a piece of work specifically in Scotland, focusing on the needs, the attitudes and the intentions of employers and their older people over 50.
Well, the findings from our 2017 study really confirmed findings from Wendy's previous research and was consistent with those. For many older workers, there are challenges associated with staying in the labour market. So, for example, health issues, caring issues in later life, and there are also issues of perceived ageism in the labour market, where older people find it difficult.
I think the research done by Airey and Loretto really did have real world impact. I think what it did was to inform Scottish Government of the barriers and the needs of older workers and how we can go about supporting them and supporting employers, and allow us to take forward funding streams, awards that actually help individual workers. We used it to raise awareness across Scottish Government of the issues that older workers face. So it informed policy development in other areas, whether it's transport, care services, care provision. The research was really useful and actually quite vital to inform policy development across Scottish Government.
What we've managed to do with this research is influence Scottish Government policy, and the result is that this work has contributed to reducing the multiple barriers to employment for older workers.
The Age Inclusive Matrix is a consultancy tool to work with employers to diagnose the age problems that they have and then to work with them to fix those problems.
When we were looking at the research that was available to inform the Age Inclusive Matrix work, what we discovered is that very little of that is UK based and even less is actually Scottish based. The research paper that came from Edinburgh University Business School was relevant because it was by far the strongest Scottish-based research.
Our research came up with a number of best practice recommendations which Age Scotland integrated into their age inclusive matrix. So first of all, there was a recommendation that employers communicate flexible work opportunities to all of their employees. Lots of older workers wish to work part-time or more flexibly. Secondly, the age inclusive matrix encourages employers to integrate age into workforce planning. Thirdly, to develop career development strategies for older workers and to ensure that training and skills development opportunities are available to all employees, regardless of their age.
The organisations like ourselves at TACA, we participated in the matrix, and it allowed us to look at our current policies and procedures to see whether they were fit for purpose for an age inclusive environment. That matrix allowed us to sit down and thoroughly look at what we were doing and assess it based on that matrix. If we didn't have the matrix, I think we'd be floundering, to be honest.
Edinburgh University's research is one of the pillars that we build these social interventions on. The matrix is now going to be delivered in 35 Scottish organisations, doing a real deep dive to make those organisations as age inclusive as possible.
We've put age on the agenda for employers across Scotland and beyond, and in particular changed practice on the ground for employees over 50 in Scotland.
Prior to the report being published, we very much worked with our members to provide guidance around creating more inclusive workplaces, around how we promote fair work. Quite often, we would never have referred to older workers. Quite often we would never have referred to the challenges or opportunities that employers face in terms of supporting their older workers.
We highlighted it to the Minister for Business, Fair Work and Skills and the Minister for Older Workers and Equality, and they used it as part of their awareness raising to employers when they were in conferences, events, speeches, for example, and obviously it improved their knowledge of the need for policy to be developed to support older workers.
I think that what it has done is raise awareness amongst many employers across many industry sectors that they need to focus more on their older workers, that their workforce is ageing, and they need to look at how they support the older workers' agenda.
This research has had impact on policy and practice in employing organisations, and the outcome of that is that people aged 50 and over will have improved opportunities in the labour market in Scotland.
I believe the University of Edinburgh's work had a real world impact on TACA as an organisation to support our age inclusiveness.
Wendy and Laura's work has had significant impact to the HR profession in Scotland and the work that CIPD Scotland has been delivering with its members and its wider stakeholder groups. It's made us think about our own research and insight in a different way and through the eyes of the lens of an older worker.
So the research informs our policy development, and as part of our policy development, when we come up with projects and funding streams, we make sure that it targets the people that need the help. So I think it has an immediate impact on individuals and also employers too.
I'm really delighted with the impact that this research has had, because I think there's nothing worse than doing a piece of academic work that just sits on the shelf and doesn't change anybody's life. And so it's incredibly encouraging to have done some work that we can see is changing organisations' policies and practices with a real world impact on older workers' experiences of being at work.
I'm proud of the impact that the research has achieved. When I first started researching in this area nearly 20 years ago, nobody wanted to hear about age discrimination, and getting that on the agenda and making a real difference to employment practices and the lives of older workers is incredibly important.